Graham, I suppose, look back to the weekend and you seem very disappointed at the final whistle.
I think we're all entitled to be. I think it was one of the poorest performances we've had for a long time. The final scoreline, the final outcome of it all was an embarrassing performance, an embarrassing day. And this followed a week where I felt the preparation had gone well, and we'd looked at one or two things that we needed to do well. But the disappointment for me was the level of performance, and individually, collectively, we were very poor. So there's no getting away from that. It's now what happens after this is the important thing.
If in your post-match you took most of the blame, you said you set the team up, you set it out, but I suppose the players who went out there, none of them really shone too much.
Well, I don't think there were too many performances anywhere near their capabilities. You know, I think we've gone to some places this season, some tough places, and come out of it. Even if we haven't won the game, we've come out of it with some credit. At least we've had some decent performances. But I think as manager, you have to take responsibility for what goes on the pitch. In the end, we get some credit for when things go well, so you have to take the blame when things go wrong. And I think that's the case at the moment. We've obviously finished up with we could do with the squad strengthening. I think that's obvious. I think that perhaps the board have come in for a bit of criticism, the chairman's come in for a bit of criticism. I don't see why. I think they have backed me for whatever I've wanted to do, within reason of course. We've not been able to go and spend £1 million on a player, but I've been backed by the board in whatever we've wanted to do. So I think there's a message there. They can't have done any more. And I think that if supporters feel that they need a change at the top, they've only got to look round the clubs within a fairly close proximity to this one. You look at Wrexham and Chester and now Hereford, Port Vale went into administration, Stockport, even big clubs like Coventry have struggled a bit. So the club is in good shape, the team isn't. And the team is what we've got to put right. There's no need to look any further than that. The infrastructure at the club is first class for a club of this size. So it's now making sure the team's right and that the team comes up to supporters' expectations. I think that playoffs, promotion, consolidation last year, we're looking to improve. We're looking to, if we can, finish in the top half of the table. Our current position in the league is not a disaster by any means. I think we're in a reasonable position. I think some of the games that we've played this season should have produced more points for us. We've obviously had a problem scoring goals, but equally the creation of chances has got to be a team thing. The taking of chances has got to be a team thing. The same as when we defend. We defend from the front, and front players are expected to work hard. And the benefits are that we keep clean sheets occasionally. So it is not the goalkeeper and the back four that should take credit, but the team as a whole. And the same at the other end, when goals are not going in, you've got to look at the team as a whole. So I think supporters should look at the club as a whole and think, yeah, we're in good nick here. But the team at the moment obviously needs tweaking, strengthening, adjusting, whatever it is, to make sure that we make some progress in the league now.
To start the season, you said the focus was on bringing younger players in that can develop and actually be better once we've had them. Is that still the case?
I think the first priority is to win football matches and to progress in the league. But along the way, you know, there's the opportunity to blood young players. We've done that this season, and some of them have, over the season, maybe not Saturday, but over the season, have done fairly well. It's a big league to be playing in, to be putting young players in, but so far they've acquitted themselves reasonably well. And it's when you look for the more senior players to help them out, and I think generally that's happened this season. So for me now, it's the approach to the next match. Do we draw a line under Saturday's game at Walsall and say, look, we were hopeless, we were very poor. What we've got to do is make sure that there's no lasting effects from that game, that there's no great loss of confidence, that we don't go to Port Vale. Then I think it's Notts County and Oldham here. We've got to get good points from those sort of matches, and it is using that little bit of experience that I've got to ensure that we're in a good state and a good frame of mind for this coming Saturday. We can all blast the players. I can do that from morning to night now. But whether that does any good for Saturday, I'm not sure. Confidence is such an important thing, but it's also such a fragile thing. And we've got to make sure that players' confidence stays as high as possible at the moment. And when you have a result like Saturday, and don't forget we won the week before against Sheffield United, a very good win. So we've got to make sure that we keep everything in context, that we don't browbeat the players into submission, that we still encourage them to go out and express themselves and show that they can play the game. And so I think it's drawing a line under last Saturday at the right time, making sure players are aware of our shortcomings, where the thing went wrong, and making sure we put it right for Port Vale, for Notts County, for Oldham.
I suppose you look at the Oldham game when we played with the JP2, another poor performance. After that we bounced back, so you're hoping that there can be the odd poor game and then everything going back on track.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you set the mood wrong as a manager. I made several changes, a number of changes for that game against Oldham, so I'm not sure whether the reaction to that is perhaps not that important a game. We certainly fielded a team against Oldham in the JPT that we wouldn't have done in the league. I wouldn't have made the changes. And so is that a message? Well, it's not quite a league game, it's not that important. I don't know, but it was a poor performance against Oldham. But we've put in some decent performances, and what we've got to do is compare Sheffield United, say, with Walsall. Yeah. Walsall, we were very poor, we didn't deserve anything out of the game. The big disappointment for me, it was the FA Cup, and a great opportunity to progress in that, to bring some finance into the club, to have the boost and the interest of having a run in the FA Cup. Mind you, I don't think the draw has been too kind to Walsall, going now to Leyton Orient in the next round. But the league is of paramount importance. It always is. Cup runs are fleeting. You finish up in the league, that stays with you. And the target has got to be finishing in the top half of the table now.
I suppose some fans will look at a team like Walsall and think local rivals should be beating them, but they've been in League One for a while now and built and developed over time.
They have, and they're a good side. They're reasonably placed in the league. The games that we watched prior to ours was against Coventry, which they lost narrowly, and MK Dons they lost narrowly. Could have easily got something out of both games. So they're a decent side, but we haven't got to look at Walsall now. We've got to be thinking of what happened to us, why we were so poor. And that's the first analysis over the weekend and today. We can watch the DVD till we're blue in the face. What we've got to do is identify why it went wrong and how we put it right, whether it was in training, whether we'd done too much, whether we'd not done enough. But I felt leading up to the game, we'd had a good week's preparation. That was the mystery for me. I felt that we looked okay, we looked organised in training, we knew what we were about. We spent a day at Lillishall working at it, and that is the mystery, and that's the disappointment why it goes so far wrong in the match.
When it comes to strengthening, I mean, you've mentioned there's money there, the board will back you. I mean, is it sometimes that you're looking with your old chairman sort of head on about spending money, or is it just that the players you want aren't available at the price?
Well, I think that there's a responsibility to the business side of the football club. There's got to be from everybody. You know, you don't want to finish up in administration. You don't want to be finishing up in a position where players are not being paid and the staff are not being paid or laid off, which has happened to quite a lot of clubs. But at the same time, my priority is to do well on the pitch, and that in itself, if you're doing well, will produce revenue. So it's obvious that in the outside of the transfer windows, we can't buy anybody. We can't pay money for anybody. But the loan system, we've been trying to bring in players, trying to strengthen the squad. For whatever reason, it's not materialised. Young Liam McAlinden couldn't play. Christian Lopez was called back. Things like that happen, and you've got to get over it. But as far as I'm concerned, I've been in the game a long time now, and I couldn't have had any better backing from the club itself, from the chairman and from the board. And I repeat, I think supporters have to be careful of what they wish for, comparing us in the state that this club is in as a whole, compared to some of our neighbours.
I suppose what's the focus now then? Because you mentioned about sort of strengthening the squad. Does it look to January, or bring in some people with an eye to January maybe?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, ideally we've got to strengthen the side for immediate reaction and immediate purposes, but then you're also looking long term. Can anybody we take in now be a permanent deal in January? Are the targets out there that we could afford? And we're not talking about big transfer fees. That's obvious. But there is, I'm certain, funds available if the right younger player came along and we wanted to bring them in the club, or the right experienced player that would help the younger players. But I've said often enough, I think the dressing room is better than it was last year. I think we had some poor performances last year at different places. I feel more confident about this group of players that we've got in now, particularly the senior ones who are helping the youngsters. Now what we've got to do is turn that into some good results and a good run of form. So reaction from players now is of paramount importance.
I suppose that's the final bit, isn't it? The players now know what to do. They've got some games coming up where on paper they can pick some points up. Just got to achieve it.
Well, I think we should make no mistake about it. Players will hurt more than anybody else. They devastated with their level of performance after the match. There can be no doubt in that. And I'm sure every one of them wants to put that right this week, through training, through the game on Saturday, subsequent games. There is a determination to put that right. And as I say, I think we've got a good group of conscientious professional football players who will be desperate to make amends for what happened at Walsall.